Yeah, no problem.
So you have a background in IT.
Yeah, I got a background in IT, and I've done businesses with IT, and I know how that works. But you know, that market is quite a different market. Sometimes it requires a lot of overhead. And when I say overhead, the resource and the capability of the resources, it's a high dollar value resource, and the
Yeah, and the
margins that we
failure rate is
typically deal
extremely
with.
high as well.
Yeah, yeah. And so with that too, and what the clients are willing to turn over, you just don't get the margins like you used to. And I think it's all
Remember
right,
Y2K,
but yep,
right? That's when you were making a
yeah,
ton of money.
yeah. That back, I tell you, in the early 2000s, we're making great money,
Yeah.
right? And I've made some pretty decent money through the course of time, but I think I'd like something with a lower boiling point, and
Okay.
you know, and that's why I saw that. I thought, huh, the funny thing is people are challenging the simplicity of what he's saying, and I think there's probably some formula and some value in what that message is. So that's
Yeah.
why I reached out.
Okay.
So,
I appreciate that. I'm always getting challenged, especially on Facebook groups. Because what I have to
mhm.
say and the research that we do for the past 40 years, is not common. Nobody does research. Nobody is interested in designing their future. Nobody does that. Number one, why? It's your life. You only have one, right? So, um,
Mhm.
I get into trouble a lot. In fact, I was thrown out of LinkedIn 8 times because I went against their community standards. So,
Oh, whatever the community standards are, right?
well, the first time was because I was speaking against human trafficking. And how can that be against community standards? I don't get it. When politicians ignore, human trafficking issue, and it's a pandemic, um, I mean, it means their buddies have something to hide and they're covering for people. And that's really a shame, right? And
It
the
is a big
second
shame,
time,
right? And
yeah, and the second
no,
time was
it's a
about
big shame.
COVID mandates. So,
I tell you, like it's good to have a voice, right? And
mhm.
I think,
Until your voice gets
and
shut off.
I don't know about your situation, but I could tell you're very respectful, and I don't think you're by any means, inflammatory beyond what's kind of just a statement and for people to make their own opinion,
Mhm.
you know.
Yep.
So yeah, I think your approach
Okay, you froze.
is probably. Oh, you're blacked out.
While you're freezing, your internet connection is actually not very good. You're red right now. Are you hardwired in or are you using Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi, and that might be it.
Yeah.
But
Is there any way
where
you
I
can
am,
hardwire in?
not from the location I'm at, but yeah, I just can't from this location that I'm at.
Okay.
So yeah,
Um,
I'm
uh,
a little bit separate from where the router is.
okay. So let's
Okay.
because you keep freezing every three
Can
or
I take my
five
video off
minutes.
and maybe that'll help?
Yeah, okay, try that. So
Can
give
you
me
hear me
some
now?
background. So you're in the IT and you're thinking of starting a landscaping business, I think you were saying. How
Well,
did you
I like
get
the
to
whole
where you
notion
are
of it.
today?
So, I'm a well-schooled person. I worked in industry in my early part of the career, and I saw what industry was doing in terms of um, services within IT. So I just created a little company on my own, and I've been running that company for quite some time, the last 20 some odd years.
Okay. How many
And
employees?
About 25, 30, depending
Okay.
on the season as well. Those are the core group. Depending on the projects and what we have in stream, it can at any point flex up to 60 to 70 people. So
Okay. So fairly substantial. Are you making money,
yeah, I've made some decent money through my time.
but not consistent enough?
But I think the thing is distribute some of that money being called divorce.
Ah,
Um,
yeah. My first
yeah,
divorce cost me $7 million. So I understand where you're coming from.
yeah. So yeah, and I'm at a point now where yeah, I'm keeping that running, but um, there's gonna be some point where I'm slowing down here too, and it's something that's not so in the face every day because in the technology business, you're always subjected to, and it's a multi-tiered business, right? Like I deal with more of the executive level and have discussion in terms of really what we can do to outlay their strategy digitally. Um, but you know, I don't need to be in the face all the time. Is what I'm saying. And
Okay.
something like this landscaping type or some other business that has a low overhead, but I'm not immune to the fact that you have to always be active to keep your business successful. But what I mean is not necessarily have to be active 24/7 whenever my clients call me.
Right. Well, they
Yeah.
shouldn't be calling you. They should be calling your people. So I think what you're trying to describe is a business to start a business on autopilot, where you're outside of the business and you hire people to run it and manage it for you. Is that what you're describing?
Well, no, I do have leadership and people who help manage things for me, but
Okay.
I think part of the fact is there's still some relationship development in my business, and it's just the way I've operated. But I want to kind of get away from having to be so scheduled, if that makes sense. Like I think landscaping scheduled, of course, or some other type of business, but it doesn't require me to be running through, okay, on Monday I need to meet this person at Nike, or I need to meet this person at Synovus or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So that type of schedule, you
Okay.
know, that I can learn to avoid.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
Forgive me for saying, doing my job for 40 years, you kind of have to read between the lines. And I'm just wondering why someone with, 30 to 60 employees is not, going all in to say, okay, this is very profitable. It's give me the quality of life that I need. So I'm going to go all in and, grow it to, $100 million.
Well, I
Why?
think it's in my stage of life as well, though,
Okay.
Leo, where I'm in my early, I just turned 50 last year, and quite honestly, like I can do that, but it I think I'm past the point now where IT acquisitions weren't the way they used to be. I did get offers even like 5, 6 years ago, but that kind of market's dried up, and I think I made a mistake by not converting the business earlier, right?
Okay.
But I think there's some sustaining value in it that I'll get, but I'm looking to kind of step out of something that runs at the pace of what the IT business is. And I mean, the thing with the IT business is it really is quite it's a tedious business from the sense that the technology changes on the month, and you really have to not only keep your staff upskilled but yourself.
Right.
And you know, as much as you said, like why aren't other people handling it? It's interesting, but even in this business, when we're dealing with some larger clients, sometimes those people may get you in the door to get an engagement, and it could be just a small engagement worth, a few $100,000. You carry out that engagement, but the relationship, depending on the level of the organization, is they want to talk to you,
Yeah,
and
they want to talk
you
to the
know,
owner. Yes.
yeah. So that, which I don't mind, but I think in this one it's a little tougher because we're we got clients that are distributed across the globe, and sometimes I'm on calls at 3 in the morning
Mm. So
because there's
quality
somebody
of
in
life is a
Switzerland.
problem.
Quality of life is a problem in this business.
Okay.
Yeah, and just because I've done this, and I mean, it hasn't grown to the scale like you said that it could. But at the same time, it requires a lot of effort to do that. Not that
Okay.
I'm immune to effort, but it's one of those things where there's a quality of life to the balance of what that effort is.
Right.
And everything that you're saying sounded much more appealing to me.
Okay. Well, I've been in the construction renovation space, all my life, basically. I started my first construction business when I was 17. So I was lucky to choose, not that I did research, right? I just fell into it by accident. The construction business started by accident because I thought I was going to be an architect. So, but then once I got into it and I started looking at, other industries, and the numbers just did not make sense. And that's why I kept continuing in the construction space. I mean, I own shares in 19 different companies and we're starting 5 others. So, and that's what I mean about starting businesses, in my case, with a partner who takes on day-to-day operations of the business, so I don't have to get involved. I only get involved in the business blueprint, designing the strategies, then say, here is the blueprint, give it to your people. And, unless the train is about to derail, that's the only time I want to get involved. Or if you're not going to meet goals on a weekly basis or monthly basis or quarterly basis, then I'll get involved. Otherwise, it's your baby, all right? So maybe that's something that you should be looking at. Um, and again, the most profitable industry is most profitable 20 years ago is going to be most profitable 20 years from today. And it doesn't suffer like the IT industry suffers. Does that make sense?
You're right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And you're right. The IT industry, as much as people think it's the future, we we work on the ways of the economy and what organizations budget year to year. So, and we've seen those budgets fluctuate depending. It could be like 50% over the course of a year.
Mhm.
And when that happens, those organizations aren't necessarily enlisting you to do projects for them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying there. It's quite interesting, and you have to tell me in terms of what your formula and how someone like me, and of course you'd probably have to assess me a little more, can learn a little more from you.
Okay. Well, it's not, I'm not in the teaching business. We are in the doing business.
Yeah.
Right. So what we do, I mean, if you were a custom home builder, you don't teach your clients how to build custom homes. You build them a custom home and say, here's the key. This is how you put it in the lock. You turn it this way, the door opens this way. That's how we do it as well. We build you um, a custom, well-branded business in the field that you choose. Then we say, okay, let me train your people and how they're going to use this and what each one is responsible for and how you're going to measure progress. A quick example is a painting company that I actually met in Rio in Brazil playing in a beach volleyball tournament, and he was a painter. And I promised him the reason why he was flying around to 38 countries a year, surfing and playing beach volleyball was because he wanted the lifestyle, right? And because he was an employee His boss was slow in the winter, which allowed him to travel, and every spring he would go back to his job. And I said, well, what if we give you the same lifestyle, but you can grow and grow your business? I mean, he's at $5 million now. He does not want to grow any bigger because even during COVID, he was still traveling. In fact, almost 2 years ago, he called me from Turks and Caicos and saying, Leo, I can't get back to Canada because he's not vaccinated and stuff like that. So he was afraid he was not going to be able to get back into the country. But he just bought a $5 million house, and he has a very expensive cottage, and he has the lifestyle that he wants, and the business works for him, not the other way around, right? He's not a slave to his business, and most people create a business so they can have a job. They buy themselves a job. So and this is why we're controversial. This is why I get a lot of hate mail, because I'm saying stuff that kind of shows that they've been doing you wrong for 10, 20 years, and our egos doesn't allow us to believe that. So they go straight into discredit mode, right? So one of the reasons why I like the landscaping industry, and keep in mind we have more buyers of businesses than we have sellers, is because of the contracts, right? People want to buy a business with contracts with almost guaranteed, income, right? Because a lot of times when you buy a business, a lot of the employees evaporate because new management style, what's going to happen, we don't know. So they immediately start looking for other jobs, right? So that happens, but you don't want that to happen with the clients as well. But when you're buying contracts, you're buying a fairly secure business. And most of the businesses that we design have an exit strategy within 2 to 5 years, right? So we start a business for Gary, you grow it to, let's say, 3 million or $5 million with a plan to sell it once it gets to $5 million. You cash out at probably around the $4 or $5 million range, right? You leave your general manager or your CEO in place for 6 to 12 months, but because you're not involved in day-to-day operations of the business, you don't have a non-compete. It's the general manager, the CEO that has a non-compete, right? So this is how we get around some of these barriers. And immediately, once you get the cash out, you're starting 2 or 3 or 4 other businesses. And you do the same thing, grow it to $3 or $5 million, sell them, and just keep flipping businesses. I enjoy flipping businesses more than I do flipping real estate. And I used to flip 12 houses a month back in the day. So to me, it's the most profitable business, and it gives you the adrenaline rush when you need it, when you want to get involved, and you step back and you operate your businesses from your cottage or your boat or wherever you are. Or Arizona, people in Alberta love going to Arizona, so you can operate your business from Arizona. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, but I was just talking to Scottsdale real estate agent.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
And
we
you,
love it because it's 2 hour flight.
right, right.
I think everybody in Ontario likes Florida, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Florida or
yeah,
Mexico. The love of my life lives in Mexico. But yeah, so I mean, there's
yeah.
a lot of
So,
opportunities. So it's about, thinking about, okay, how can I create the best quality of life for myself and my family and my employees, right? Then doing that research. So I would either recommend, I don't like landscaping. I don't like roofing because it's a seasonal type business. But when you factor in other services, as an example, party lights. One of my clients does $2 million on party lights. The reason why we don't call them Christmas lights is because Christmas lights are seasonal, party lights are not, right? It's all in the branding and differentiation. So you could easily, have landscaping maintenance contracts in the summer and fall, spring, summer, and fall months, and do attic insulation or, I mean, most landscapers do snow removal, but snow removal with the insurance is becoming more and more expensive in the liability. And most people want to get out of the roofing industry because of liability. So I'm not going to suggest something that, people are trying to get out of. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
I like the whole idea of party lights too. That's funny.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
And I did it
it's
for
interesting.
myself. And, coming home to the brightest, the most beautiful house in the neighborhood, it makes you feel good. It gives you a jolt, right? And it's on the timer. And, most people remove the lights. I never remove the lights. I want the party atmosphere, summer, winter, spring, fall, all year long, because I want to feel good when I come home. I wanted my wife and my girlfriend, and if I have kids, for them to feel good when they come home as well. Right. So it gives you
Yeah,
that
no,
feeling.
yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
So,
sure we can
so
come
what,
up with 3 or 4 or 5 other things you can do in the winter to make sure you keep your key employees working, because some of them do want to have the winter off. So you give them a choice.
yeah, so that was one of my questions is like, yeah, so how do you balance that? Because we're in winter cities, right? And
Hmm.
you know, and as you said, right, the natural thought on the offset of that is snow removal, but like you say, snow removal is very litigious, if you want to call it that, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
One of my brothers works for an optical place, and in the winter, he literally, I mean, they put cameras all over the parking lot, because once a week, someone pretends to slip and fall, and so they can sue, because they figure a bunch of doctors are filthy rich, and why shouldn't I grab a couple of $1 million from them? So it's funny, in our family chat, WhatsApp chat, he shows us frame by frame by frame by frame these scammers, right? So I don't want to,
Mhm.
design and build you a business where you're going to get these scammers. And if you're going to do mall snow removal, you're going to get those scammers, right? And the mall is going to turn around and say, hey, this is your baby, this is your insurance, you deal with this.
Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah. So I'm really I don't know if it's your history and just I think there's sometimes I think I have only done one other call like this, and and I think in my life, sometimes you wonder how legitimate these people are, but maybe because you're Canadian, but the other thought of it is, you know, I I I think you got a lot of sensibility, and I think there's authenticity to it in what you're selling here. We're not
Well,
selling, but
there has to be, because we work month by month. You don't like what I'm saying? You don't like what my people are doing? You're not going to renew for next month, right? We work with clients long term, right? And we work in phases. Sometimes we start in by designing the business blueprint, hand it over, and they say, oh, Leo, I'm good, for a year or two, or 6 months or 3 months. Then you say, okay, now we're at 3 million. We're struggling at 3 million. How do we get between 3 million and 4 million? Then we come back in and see what the issues are, fix that, and you're off again. So you're not paying us continuously. You're paying us when you need help,
okay.
right?
So how
So
how does this consultancy how does this consultancy work for someone like me? I want to get something started
okay,
here.
glad to hear it.
Um,
Well, let me give you an example. We have. I'm going to give you a case study outside your industry, because I'm going to assume you're going to go into landscaping or painting. I'm going to give you the option, because painting,
I like painting too.
you're not affected by weather, right? When you're doing interior painting, I don't even think you need to do exterior painting. Let the fools handle that. Let the idiots with the ladders and the 40-foot ladders, kill themselves. Interior painting, there's no storms, there's no weather, there's nothing. right? So there's really nothing stopping you unless there's other subcontractors and in the house and they're delayed or something. That's really the only problem. But most of the time you're dealing directly with a client. And if you say, you know, we're going to start in 2 weeks at 9 o'clock in the morning, you know, there's nothing stopping you, right? In most cases. So it's very
Mhm.
predictable income. And when you do it in volume, even though you're only making 10 or 20, 10 to 15% net profit, you're doing it in volume. You know, you've got 5 or 10 crews out there, each one performing. You've got a crew chief that is responsible, and they just do their jobs, right? We set up what we call stepping stone relationships, where 90% of your business either comes in from real estate agents. So you're only dealing with, 30 or 50 real estate agents or 20 or 30 interior designers. And all that work comes from that source. And you've got a $5 or $10 million company right there without
Hmm.
doing too much outside marketing. And that way you're controlling the types of clients you get in, right?
Yeah, no, that's very intuitive and an ironically simplistic approach, right?
Mhm. Yeah, we don't complicate things. It's when you complicate things that you create problems. So, how we work, there's basically three different levels that we work. We work on a purely advisory level. That's the lowest level between $500 and $1,500 a month, where we advise you in what you're doing. That's usually used more if you're running a business already. You're semi-successful, but you've got log jams somewhere, and you want to fix those log jams. One of the ways we used that was to triple a roofing company's workforce because for 24 years he couldn't hire people and he couldn't go above the 2 million because he couldn't hire enough people because he was treating his people like crap and he thought he was loved by his employees, but that's a different story. So we helped him triple his workforce in 4 months. Then we have what we call advisory plus a done for you program, where we use a business in the box, where we have aging websites. And when you start SEO, you're doing it from an authoritative website, and it's not a brand new website. And we're saving you a ton of time because the website already has credibility. So when we customize it for you, you start getting leads, within 3 to 6 months. In those terms, that's very quickly. So that's a
Mhm.
advisory plus a done for you program. And the third one, which is the one we get the most return, or the fastest return on investment, and the fastest way to get you to 5 million in revenue or 10 million in revenue, is what we call the interim CEO for you program, where we act as your CEO. And the reason why that's more effective is because of the 1% deviation. If I said, Gary, do this, this, and this, or to give you another example, if I asked 1,000 people to read my favorite book, which is, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, I
Mhm.
guarantee you will have 1,000 interpretations of that book, even though we're reading it line by line, paragraph by paragraph at the same time. We're going to get 1,000 interpretations because what happens is all that information goes through our history filters, and we either accept or reject based on our history, and we interpret that information. So the information that the author thought he was giving you and what we are receiving are never, ever the same. Remember the kids' game, The Broken Telephone? And you transfer
Yeah.
the information to 20 different people, what you start with and what you end up with is not the same. And that's what happens when I give you the information, then you transfer that information to your key people transfer it to the front line. It's butchered by the time it gets to the front line, even though it's a document, because each one interprets it. So I instruct your people directly. Here's the business blueprint. Here's your part of it, and we manage the people to make sure that 1% deviation is not that bad, because now they're reporting directly to me and you at the same time. And that's how we can get you to $10 million a lot faster. In that program, the investment is $100,000 a year. And again, we even start with a $5,000 deposit. Then we start working we have over 10,000 websites that are aging, right? Because a proper domain name and a proper company, well-researched company, to me, is worth $100 million. So we don't trust you to pick a name. We want to use a well-researched name to give you the advantage. Does all that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I understand that quite well. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. So I guess the formula just needs to be applied to the type of business, right? Whether it's painting, landscaping, or
Yeah.
if it's one that starts and yeah, another one can come in later, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What we recommended to that roofing company, we tripled the workforce, was to sell the company because he was clearly burnt out, and I saw that in the first 10 minutes when he flew in to meet with me and his wife. And the reason why the wife wanted to come in was because she was sick and tired of every couple of years they were refinancing the house because the business has to be subsidized, right? So it was not clearly a well-designed business, and seasonal businesses are notorious for that, right? So I mean, 40 years of experience, chances are you're not going to give me anything or any challenge that we haven't dealt with already 20 or 30 or 40 times already, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we know every possible problem you're going to create because we create our own
Yeah.
problems.
So with the one model with you as CEO, let's say, right, and co-CEOs or whatever.
Yep.
How does the fee get managed? Does that come from percentages or
Well,
based on
okay, now
based
you're
on?
talking about other plans. If
No, I'm just trying to understand the whole. Yeah.
I own shares in 19 different companies, as I said. You and I could become partners in this painting company. Um, and as long as we're on the same page and you want a franchise, as soon as we get to $1 million to start franchising, there's a ton of money in franchising. If you don't know, if you haven't done research, and we've worked on 8 franchise concepts from scratch. So I love franchising. Franchising is the quickest way to get capital infusion into a company. There's a lot of regulations in franchising, but there's ways around those regulations until you're set up properly. So, and that's the fourth option. You could say, Leo, I want you to be my partner, and let's grow this business to $100 million. And let's start it obviously in the steps that are appropriate. But that's another option as well.
Okay. So it's very compelling.
Well, there's a lot of money
Yeah.
to be
So
made in the construction industry, a ton of money. Like I said, I made my first million before I was 25, and I was ignorant.
yeah. So with the Calgary market and what you see of the Calgary market, and I know you sound well researched. What would you say is the best business to partner up on?
Well, I mean,
To
if it
go.
was my choice, the reason why I like landscaping maintenance is because the contracts. Very hard to get contracts in the painting industry. So resale value, if I had a $5 million painting company and a $5 million landscaping company, that landscaping company is going to sell for 2 or 3 times more than the painting company. But if we're planning to franchise and keep this company to get to 100 million, the painting company is going to get there a lot faster than the landscaping company. So it really depends on what the goal is.
Yeah, I think the goal is to definitely, I like your idea of converting and selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the franchising thing is really selling as well, but I think the other model keeps you a little fresher, I think. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like recycling those opportunities, I think, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Now, how many times can you turn those things over? I don't know. Like, let's say if you built a landscape company, you sold it, and then you built another one. How easy is it to sell
Well,
two, three in the same area?
oh, extremely, extremely easy. Because don't forget, even if you use the proper branding and differentiation, the most you're going to capture is, let's say, 10% of the market share, right? But once you're out of the non-compete, and again, we try and give the non-compete to your CEO or general manager, so it's not you, because you can plead ignorance and say, hey, I'm not involved in day to day. So if you really want someone to stay and help you grow this company further, it's my general manager. I depend on him, right? So you should depend on him. That releases you from the non-compete, right? And as long as you start with a whole new brand that has nothing to do, and different colors, different everything, there's nothing stopping you from starting a business in a different part of town.
Yeah,
Right?
no, fair enough. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I
there's
mean,
nothing
Calgary's,
stopping you, even though you live in Calgary. It doesn't mean you can't start a business in Edmonton when you hire crews and your crew chief and everybody else in Edmonton, right? And by the way, I used to spend 50% of my time in Alberta, so I know the market fairly well.
oh, good. So, I don't want to have to take up all your time, but so how do you
Give it some
payroll these
thought.
things?
Give it some
No,
thought.
I'm definitely. So how do you payroll these kind of things?
How do you mean payroll?
Well, we get a crew. Do we have jobs before the crews get hired, or do the
Yes,
crews get
yes,
hired?
absolutely. No, the
Yeah.
salespeople get hired. Usually a
Okay.
month before launching the business, the salespeople are out there selling the leads. So on the day of launching, you've got trained crews and trained salespeople who have signed contracts, and you have a general manager there, to manage these things. So a week or two, everybody gets trained on launch. You starting with projects. You can start with one crew or three crews, right? But they're starting on day one. And if you get jobs before launch, then you use a subcontractor, right? And you get
Right.
10% of the project, right? So we've thought about all these contingencies.
Okay. No, that's good. That's very good.
Give it
Okay.
some thought, schedule another call, and we can have a better conversation. Next time you join in, it's really uncomfortable talking to a blank screen. I'm a
Yeah,
visual,
I'm very sorry about that.
no problem. Hardwire
Let's
in
see if
and
this brings it back.
log in from a computer. You are in the computer, but hardwire
Yeah.
in, and immediately you came on, you turned red, and while your picture was off, you were white. So it does
Yeah.
true up.
Usually, I'm not too sure what's going on, but usually I don't get that kind of performance degradation.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think if
think,
you
is it looking better
hardwire in,
now, or
you'll be better.
yeah, for sure.
Yep.
But but yeah, I'd like to speak with you very soon. I'm actually I have to go to a conference next week. So I'll be out of town at this conference, but if I could schedule one for the week I come back, that would be good. I'll do a lot of
Or
thinking and
schedule
modeling
it. I
this.
mean, there's internet connection in hotel rooms. I hate putting
Yeah,
stuff on back burners, right? Momentum in
yeah,
designing a business, there's nothing more important than momentum. Okay.
perfect. Then I'll get something in next week. Let's
Sure,
do
no
that.
problem. Sounds good. A pleasure
Okay.
talking to you. We'll talk again soon. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, Leo.
All right, bye bye.
Great.